I have a condition of chronic pain. I know that term gets thrown around a lot, and I'm not here to compare suffering with anyone. But for me, it's like this. Imagine you're walking around with a pulled muscle in your back every single day. Not the screaming, can't move kind, but the dull ache that reminds you it's there every time you twist or bend. Some days it's a 6 out of 10. On good days, maybe a 4. And on bad days, I can barely get out of bed. I have a handicap placard on my car, a cane that I only pull out when I hit a 7 or above, and all my disability paperwork filed with both my jobs. I work 2 jobs. One is full-time, the other is a part-time gig that I actually enjoy. It keeps me busy, which helps with my anxiety. About 6 months ago, I got moved to a new location for my part-time job. The branch had expanded and needed more assistant coordinators. My new boss, Amy, is awesome. She's understanding about my condition and never makes me feel like I'm a burden when I need to sit down or take a break. Then there's Casey. Casey and I share the same position, but we're not really friends. She's been gunning for a promotion for years. Everyone knows it. I don't want the promotion. It would mean going full-time, and I already have a full-time job. I'm not a threat to her, or so I thought. It started on a Sunday. I was having a rough pain day, probably a 7. I used my cane to get around the store. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just moved a little slower, leaned on the counter when I could. Casey kept looking at me, not in a concerned way, more like she was studying me. At one point she asked, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, I'm fine, just a bad day." She nodded and walked away. A week later, I was having a great day, pain level maybe a 3 or 4, I didn't need my cane, I parked in my usual spot, walked into work, did my shift. Everything felt normal. Then on my way out to my car after my shift, I saw Casey standing near the employee parking lot holding her phone up. She was filming me. I froze for a second, then walked toward her. She didn't even try to hide it. "What are you doing?" I asked. She lowered her phone and said, "I'm just documenting that you can walk just fine without that cane." I didn't scream. I didn't even know what to say. I just stood there with my car keys in my hand. She told me she had footage from other days too, days when I was walking normally without any visible limp. She said she was going to take it to HR to prove I was faking my disability for the parking spot and the accommodations. I thought I was overreacting. Maybe I was being too sensitive. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how messed up this was. She had been watching me, following me out of work, waiting for me to leave. That's stalking, isn't it? And then she had the nerve to tell me she was doing it for the integrity of the workplace. I went to Amy the next day. I told her what happened. Amy's face went pale. She said she would speak to Casey immediately. She also told me to write down everything I remembered, dates and times. I did that. I even checked my building's security cameras to see if they caught Casey filming me. They did, kind of. The footage showed her standing in the lot with her phone out, but it wasn't clear enough to prove she was recording me specifically. I filed a complaint with HR. The entire process felt like I was the one on trial. They asked me why I used a cane only sometimes. They asked if I had a doctor's note. I showed them my disability paperwork, but they made me feel like it wasn't enough. Casey told HR that I was abusing the system and that she had video evidence of me walking without any difficulty. I asked to see the videos. They said no, that it was part of an ongoing investigation. But then they told me the videos didn't prove anything anyway because disability isn't always visible. So why did Casey still have a job? I tried to report the stalking to the police. I went to the local precinct, told them my coworker had been filming me without my consent. The officer looked at me and said, "Did she threaten you?" I said she was building a case against me. He shrugged and said it sounded like a workplace issue, not a criminal one. He told me to take it up with my boss. I left feeling like I was invisible. That was 2 weeks ago. Casey hasn't been reassigned. She's still in my department. She doesn't talk to me anymore, but she gives me these looks. Like she's waiting for me to slip up again. I've started parking farther from the entrance just so she won't see me get out of my car. I use my cane even when I don't need it, just to avoid giving her ammunition. That can't be healthy, right? I'm literally making my pain worse to prove a point. Last night, I got a text from a friend who still works at the old location. She said Casey had been telling people I was jealous of her promotion prospects, that I was trying to get her fired because she was better at the job. I don't care about the job. I care about being watched, about being filmed, about being treated like a fraud every time I walk into a place that's supposed to be safe. I don't know what's going to happen now. Amy told me HR is still investigating, but she warned me that Casey is well-liked and that the company might try to sweep it under the rug. I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, and honestly, I'm scared, not of Casey, of the system that lets people like her get away with this. I'm a black woman in Texas with a disability. Every layer of my identity makes me an easy target, but I won't back down. I can't. That's where I am right now. Stuck between a cane and a hard place. And I haven't even told you the worst part yet. I wish that was the only crazy thing that happened to me, but it's not. Let me tell you about another time I got caught in the middle of something that wasn't my fault. This one went from 0 to 100 in about 3 seconds flat. I'm 17 and I work at a coffee shop. It's a small place, nothing fancy, just a counter and a few tables where people sit and pretend to work. I'm a barista. I make drinks, clean tables, stock cups, that kind of thing. It's not a bad job, pays minimum wage, but I get tips. Anyway, it was a Saturday afternoon in May, right before the dinner rush. The place was packed. I was on register, my coworker was on the espresso machine. We were both sweating. Then my coworker nudges me and goes, "Dude, look at those two." She points to a corner table near the window. A guy and a girl are sitting there and they are full-on making out. Not just a quick peck, I mean they are going at it like they're in a bedroom. Tongue, hands, the whole thing. My coworker says they need to get a room, this is a coffee shop. I laugh and look closer, and my blood goes cold. That's my girlfriend's sister, Sam, she's 24. I'd met her a dozen times. She was engaged to a guy named Mike and they were supposed to get married in July. That was 2 months away, and she's here in my coffee shop making out with some random dude who is definitely not Mike. I freeze, my coworker asks me what's wrong, I say nothing, I can't say anything. Sam hasn't seen me, the guy hasn't either, I just ring up the next customer and try to act normal. A few minutes later they leave, I exhale. I think that was the end of it, but then I have to go out and clear their table. I grab a rag and a bin, walk over, start wiping down the table. I'm not even thinking about it anymore. Then I hear the door open. I look up and Sam is standing there. She must have come back for something, her phone or her purse, or maybe she needed to use the bathroom. She sees me and her face just drains of color. She walks up to me, her voice is shaking. "You saw nothing," she says. "It's not a question, it's a command." I say, "I didn't see anything." She doesn't believe me, I can tell. She says we need to talk. I say I can't, I'm working. She says we're not done and walks out. I'm standing there holding a wet rag, heart pounding. 5 minutes later my phone buzzes. It's my girlfriend. She says, "What's going on with you and my sister?" She's upset. She says you saw something at work. I text back. I don't know what she's talking about. My girlfriend says she wants you to come over. Can you come over? I say I can't leave the house right now. My parents won't let me go out this late. She says they'll drive to your house. You can sneak out. I say that's not going to work. My dad checks on me before bed. She says please, you have to meet us. I'm freaking out. I tell her my parents said no. She keeps texting. I finally just put my phone on silent. I don't sleep that night. The next day is Sunday. My girlfriend calls me. She's crying. She says her sister told her I made some kind of pass at her, that I tried to kiss her. That's why she's upset. I almost dropped the phone. I say that's not true. I didn't do anything. I saw her with another guy. She was making out with someone who wasn't her fiance. My girlfriend goes quiet. Then she says, "What?" I tell her everything. The coffee shop, the guy, the way Sam begged me to keep quiet. My girlfriend says I need to talk to her. She hangs up. I don't hear from anyone for 2 days. Then Tuesday night my girlfriend calls me again. She says her sister admitted everything. She was cheating on Mike. She had been seeing this guy for months. Sam was scared I would tell her fiance, so she made up the story about me hitting on her to turn the tables. My girlfriend is furious. At her sister, not at me. She says, "I'm so sorry, I should have believed you." I say, "It's okay, what happens now?" She says, "I don't know." She's still trying to get me to not tell Mike. She's begging me. I say, "What are you going to do?" She says, "I don't know, I feel like I have to tell him, but it's her life." The next few days are chaos. Sam keeps texting my girlfriend, threatening to tell our parents I did try something. My girlfriend tells her she won't be blackmailed. I stay out of it. I go to work, make coffee, come home. I don't tell my parents anything. Then the day before the wedding, my girlfriend calls me crying. She says Sam called off the wedding. Mike found out. Somebody else saw them at the coffee shop and told him. Sam didn't confess, but Mike broke it off anyway. I say, "Are you okay?" She says, "I guess." She's devastated. She's crying all the time. My mom is mad at me for not telling her sooner. I say, "This isn't your fault." She says, "I still feel bad." I didn't know what to say to that. I was just a teenager who saw something he shouldn't have, and for that I got accused, threatened, and dragged into a family drama that was never mine to begin with. A week later, I ran into Sam at the grocery store. She looked awful. She saw me and turned around and walked the other way. She never spoke to me again. My girlfriend and I broke up about 2 months after that, not because of the sister thing, but because we were 17 and that's what happens. But I never forgot how fast everything spiraled. 1 minute I'm wiping a table, the next I'm the villain in someone else's story, and all because I happened to look up at the wrong moment. That was the last time I ever spoke to Sam. My girlfriend and I broke up a couple months later, not because of the drama, but because we were 17 and that's just what happens. But I never forgot how fast everything spiraled. 1 minute I'm wiping a table, the next I'm the villain in someone else's story, all because I happened to look up at the wrong moment. But that wasn't the last time I got caught in the middle of something that wasn't my fault. Let me tell you what happened next with that coworker who filmed me. After I filed the report with HR, I thought things would calm down. I thought Casey would get a warning and we'd move on. I was wrong. The week after I reported her, my boss Amy pulled me aside. She looked tired. She said, "Casey is denying everything." She says she never filmed you. She says you're making it up to get her in trouble because you're jealous of her. I said, "Jealous of what? I don't want her job. I don't want a promotion. I'm just trying to do my work and go home." Amy nodded. She said, "I believe you, but HR wants to do a formal investigation. They're going to interview everyone who works that shift. They also want to see the video she allegedly took." I told her I didn't have the video. I only had witnesses. My coworker Maria saw the whole thing. She saw Casey hold up her phone, saw her zoom in on me using the cane. Maria told me she'd back me up. But then Maria came to me a few days later. She looked nervous. She said, "HR called me in for an interview. I told them what I saw. But Casey's friend Sarah is saying I'm lying. She said I wasn't even at the register at that time." I said, you were right there, you even commented on what she was doing. Maria shrugged. I know, but Sarah is saying I was in the back, it's my word against hers. That's when I realized this wasn't going to be a simple investigation. Casey had been at that location for 2 years, she had friends, she knew the culture. I was the new person, the one who came in with a cane and a disability placard and a stack of paperwork. I was an outsider. I started getting texts from people I barely knew, other coworkers. They said things like, hey, just so you know, Casey is telling everyone you faked a fall to make her look bad. Another one said, she's saying you're not really disabled, you just like the perks. I didn't respond to any of them. I just forwarded the text to Amy. The next week, HR called me in for a follow-up interview. They sat me down in a conference room with two people I'd never met. A woman in a blazer and a man with a clipboard. The woman said, we've reviewed the complaint. We've interviewed multiple witnesses. Unfortunately, there is no corroborating evidence that Casey took a video of you. The witness you provided, Maria, gave a statement, but another employee contradicted her. Without concrete proof, we cannot take disciplinary action. I said, what about the fact that she followed me to my car, that she showed up at my home? The man with the clipboard said, you reported that she showed up at your home, but you didn't call the police at the time. Do you have any proof she was there? I said, my wife saw her, my neighbor has a Ring camera, I can get footage. The woman said, you can submit that as additional evidence, but for the video incident, we've closed the case, we'll note it in her file, but no further action. I felt my face go hot. I said, so she gets away with it? The man said, we're not saying she got away with anything, we're saying we don't have enough evidence to support your claim. If you submit the Ring footage, we can reopen the investigation. I didn't scream. I didn't cry, I just nodded and walked out. I went to my car and sat there for 10 minutes gripping the steering wheel. I thought about calling the police, but what would they do? I'm a black woman in Texas with a disability. The cops wouldn't take me seriously. The HR department didn't. Why would the police be any different? I started parking in a different spot every day. I started using my cane even on good days just so no one could say I was faking. I stopped eating lunch in the break room. I stayed at my desk. I stopped talking to anyone except Amy and Maria, but Casey didn't stop. A week after the HR meeting, I got an email from the general manager. It said that Casey had filed a counter-complaint against me. She said I had been creating a hostile work environment by constantly bringing up my disability and making her feel uncomfortable. She said I had accused her of ableism without proof and that my behavior was harassment. I stared at the screen. I couldn't believe it. I had done nothing but mind my own business. I had reported a documented incident. And now I was the one being investigated. Amy called me into her office. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. She said, I'm so sorry, I tried to stop this, but corporate is involved now. They want to do a full investigation into both complaints. They're bringing in an outside firm. I said, this is insane, I'm the victim here. She said, I know, but right now it's your word against hers, and she's been here longer, she has allies. I wanted to quit, I wanted to walk out right then and never come back, but I couldn't, I needed the money, I needed the insurance. And I knew that if I quit, Casey would win. She would tell everyone I left because I was guilty. She would use it as proof that I was the problem, so I stayed. I went to work every day. I said hello to people who wouldn't look me in the eye. I did my job. I went home. I cried in the shower. I held my wife and told her I was okay even when I was. The outside investigator interviewed me last week. It was 3 hours of questions. They asked about my medical history. They asked about my previous jobs. They asked if I had ever been accused of harassment before. They asked about the day I used my cane. They asked why I didn't use it every day. They asked why I parked in handicapped spots when I didn't always need the cane. I said, because I have a placard, because some days I need it, because the pain is not the same every day. The investigator wrote everything down. She didn't smile, she didn't nod, she just wrote, I haven't heard back yet, but I'm not hopeful. Every day I check my email with my heart pounding. Every time my phone buzzes, I flinch. I've started having nightmares about being filmed, about someone hiding behind a car with a phone, about people laughing at me. My wife told me I should file a police report about the stalking. I said I didn't have proof. She said the Ring camera footage from the night Casey showed up at our house was still saved. I pulled it up, there she was, her car, her face. I could see her standing on our porch looking at our door then walking back to her car. It was about 9 p.m. a Tuesday. I took the footage to the police station. I waited 40 minutes. A woman at the desk looked at the video. She said she didn't knock, she didn't break in, she just stood there, that's not really a crime. I said, she followed me from work, she's been stalking me. The woman said, have you told her to stop? I said, yes, I filed a complaint with HR. The woman shrugged. If she comes back, call us, but right now there's not much we can do. I walked out. I felt like the whole world was gaslighting me. Everyone kept saying there's not much we can do. But no one would do anything. No one would protect me. I'm still waiting for the investigator's report. My lawyer friend said I should sue the company if they don't act, but I don't have the money for a lawsuit. I don't have the energy. I'm just trying to get through the day. And the worst part, last night I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was a picture of me from behind walking into the grocery store. There was no message. Just the photo, I don't know who sent it. I don't know if it was Casey or someone she knows. But I know I'm being watched. I know this isn't over. I've started looking for a new job, but I'm scared. What if the next place is worse? What if this follows me? What if I can't escape? I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to do my job and go home. But now I'm trapped in a nightmare that started with a text message from a coworker who didn't believe I was in pain. And I don't know how to wake up. I never thought a shift at a coffee shop would blow up my entire life. But here I am, 17 years old, stuck in the middle of a cheating scandal that I never asked to be part of, and I don't know who to trust anymore. Let me back up. I work at a small coffee shop near my high school. It's the kind of place where regulars come in every morning and order the same drink, and the tips are decent. I've been there about 6 months. My girlfriend Sam, I'll call her Sam, and I have been together for almost a year. She's a junior, I'm a senior. Her family is close-knit, and I've met them several times. Her older sister Lisa is 24 and engaged to a guy named Mark. They've been together for 3 years, and the wedding was set for July. I'd only met Mark once at a family barbecue. He seemed nice, quiet, kind of a pushover. The day it happened was a Saturday in early May. The shop was slammed. We had a breakfast rush that didn't let up until almost 11. My coworker Jenny was working the register next to me, and she nudged me with her elbow. "Dude, look at those two in the corner. They need to get a room." I looked over and saw a couple making out in the back booth. They were really going at it, like full-on hands-in-hair, heavy-breathing stuff. And then I recognized the woman. It was Lisa, Sam's sister. She was supposed to be marrying Mark in 2 months, and she was locked lips with some guy she clearly wasn't engaged to. My stomach dropped. I turned away fast. I didn't want her to see me. I hoped she hadn't. I busied myself with cleaning the espresso machine, hiding behind the counter. Jenny said, "What's wrong? You look like you saw a ghost." I just said I felt sick. I wasn't lying. They eventually left. I thought I was safe. I grabbed a rag and went to clean their table, hoping to just wipe it down and forget about it. But as I reached the booth, the door swung open. Lisa walked back in. She must have forgotten something, or maybe she was going to the bathroom. She saw me and her face went white. She walked straight up to me, grabbed my arm and whispered, "You didn't see anything. You didn't see me." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." But she wasn't buying it. Her eyes were wide and wet. "Please, I know you saw me. You have to keep your mouth shut. If Mark finds out, our whole family will fall apart. Please, for Sam." I was frozen. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. She let go of my arm, gave me one last desperate look, and walked out. I finished my shift in a haze. I kept replaying it in my head. The way she was kissing that guy. The way she begged me. I didn't want to get involved. I planned to just pretend it never happened. But that night, my phone buzzed. It was Sam. She texted, "What's going on with you and my sister? She's really upset and says you fought." I wrote back, "I didn't fight with her. I didn't say anything." She said you were being weird at the coffee shop. She's freaking out. I need to know what happened." I lied. I said, "I don't know what she's talking about. Maybe she's stressed about the wedding." Sam wasn't satisfied. She kept pressing. Then she said, "She wants us to come over and talk. She said she'll drive to your house if you don't come here. Please just talk to her." I panicked. It was past my curfew. My parents are strict. I told Sam I couldn't leave the house. She said they would pick me up. I said no. I said my parents would ground me for life. She got frustrated and stopped texting. I didn't sleep that night. I kept going over my options. If I told Sam the truth, she might not believe me. If I didn't tell, Lisa might spin the story to make me look like the bad guy, and I was just a kid, a 17-year-old barista. What power did I have? The next morning, I texted Sam and said we needed to meet alone. "No, Lisa," she agreed. We met at a park near her house. I told her everything. I told her I saw her sister making out with a guy who wasn't Mark at my coffee shop. I told her Lisa begged me to stay quiet. I told her I didn't want to be in the middle of this. Sam stared at me for a long time, then she said, "My sister wouldn't do that. You must have been mistaken. Maybe it was someone else." I said, "I know what I saw. It was her. She was wearing that blue dress she wore to your birthday dinner last month." Sam's face crumpled. She started crying. She said, "Why would she do this? She loves Mark." I said, "I don't know, but I'm not lying." She said she needed to talk to her sister. She asked me to come with her. I said no. I didn't want to face Lisa. Sam got mad. She said if I wasn't lying, then why wouldn't I go with her? I said, "Because it's not my place." She said I made it my place when I opened my mouth. I walked away. I felt like I couldn't win. Later that day, Sam's sister called my phone. I don't know how she got my number. She was crying, begging me not to tell Mark. She said she and Mark had been having problems. She said she was lonely and made a mistake. She said she would end it with the other guy. She said I had to keep my mouth shut or she would lose everything. I said, "I already told Sam." There was silence. Then she said, "You what?" I said, "I told her the truth. I'm sorry." Lisa hung up. 2 hours later, I got a text from Sam. It said, "My sister says you're lying. She says you came onto her at the coffee shop and she rejected you and now you're making up stories to get back at her." I couldn't believe it. She was flipping the script. I texted back, "That's not true. You know she's lying." Sam said, "Why would she lie? She's my sister. She's getting married. Why would she risk that?" I said, "Because she got caught." Sam didn't respond after that. I felt sick. I called my best friend and told him everything. He said I should call Mark. He said the fiancé deserved to know the truth. I thought about it, but what if Mark didn't believe me either? What if I ruined their wedding and everyone hated me? I didn't call Mark, but someone else did. I don't know if it was Jenny who had seen the whole thing or maybe another customer. But a few days later, I heard through Sam's friend that Mark had confronted Lisa. He had seen the guy's car in her driveway. The wedding was called off. The whole family was in chaos. Sam stopped talking to me. I tried to call her. She wouldn't pick up. A week later, she texted me, "I can't be with you right now. My family is a mess. You didn't have to tell me. You could have kept it to yourself." I said, you asked me what happened. I told you the truth. She said, the truth destroyed everything. I didn't respond. What could I say? She was right. The truth did destroy everything, but I didn't create the lie. I just saw it. The last time I saw Sam was at school 2 weeks after the wedding was canceled. She walked past me in the hallway like I didn't exist. Her sister had moved out of state. Mark was gone. The whole family was shattered. And I was just the guy who worked at a coffee shop and saw something he shouldn't have. I still work there. Every time a couple comes in and sits in that back booth, I tense up. I don't know if I did the right thing. I think I did. But I also think about how one moment, one look, one conversation can change everything. I'm just a kid. I didn't want to be the one who ruined her life. But maybe she ruined it herself and I just happened to have a front row seat. Some days I wish I had just said I didn't see anything. Some days I'm glad I told the truth. Either way, I'm still sitting here, wiping tables, trying to figure out where I go from here. I never thought I'd have to prove my own pain to anyone. I mean, I've lived with chronic pain for years. My baseline is like a 6 on the pain scale most days. You know how people complain about a headache or a pulled muscle? That's my Tuesday morning. I've got a handicap placard on my license plate and a rearview mirror hang tag. I own 2 canes, one for inside, one for the car, but I only use them on days when I hit a 7 or above. Most people see me walking fine and think I'm faking. They don't see the days I can barely get out of bed. I work 2 jobs. My main one is a full-time remote thing. My part-time is an assistant coordinator position at a local nonprofit. I like the work and being busy helps with my anxiety. I was recently moved to a new location closer to home. The team was great. My boss, Amy, was super supportive. She knew about my disability because I filed all the paperwork up front. I had accommodations in place, flexible scheduling, a chair with lumbar support, permission to sit during meetings if I needed. It was all above board. Then there was Casey. Casey was the other assistant coordinator, same position as me. But she wanted the promotion to full-time coordinator so bad she could taste it. Everyone knew it. She'd been there 2 years longer than me and she thought she deserved it. I never hid that I didn't want the promotion. I already had a full-time job. I was just padding my savings and keeping busy. But Casey didn't see it that way. She saw me as competition. At first, it was subtle. She'd make comments like, must be nice to take breaks whenever you want, or I wish I could sit down during the afternoon rush. I'd brush it off. I thought she was just stressed. Amy had told both of us that the promotion would be decided based on performance, not seniority. Casey started working overtime, taking on extra projects. I didn't care. I did my job and went home. The incident happened on a Sunday. It was a bad pain day for me. I was at a 7, maybe an 8. I used my cane to get through the morning. I stopped at a coffee shop near my house before heading into work. I was sitting outside drinking my latte when I saw a flash out of the corner of my eye. I looked up. It was Casey. She was standing across the street holding her phone up, pointed right at me. I froze. She didn't even try to hide it. She lowered her phone, smiled, and walked away. I felt sick. I didn't confront her then. I should have. I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she was just taking a picture of the building or something, but my gut told me otherwise. I went to work later that day. Casey wasn't there. It was her day off. I tried to focus, but I kept replaying the image of her phone aimed at me. I texted my best friend. She said, that's weird. Keep an eye on her. The next morning, I got a call from Amy. She said, can you come into my office before the shift? I said, sure. When I got there, Casey was sitting in the chair across from Amy's desk. Amy looked uncomfortable. She said, Casey brought something to my attention. She showed me a video she took yesterday. It shows you walking into a coffee shop without a cane looking perfectly fine. My heart dropped. I said, Amy, I have chronic pain. Some days I need the cane, some days I don't. Yesterday was a good day after my coffee kicked in. I wasn't using the cane by the time I sat down, but I was in pain all morning. Casey spoke up. She said, you claim you're disabled, but you're walking around like nothing's wrong. You use that placard so you can park close. You use your cane for sympathy. I think you're faking it to get special treatment. I was shaking. I said, I have medical documentation. I've filed it with HR. This is not up for debate. Amy looked at Casey and said, Casey, we don't question a person's disability. That's against policy. Casey said, I'm just saying she should be evaluated again. If she can walk without a cane, then maybe she doesn't need the accommodations. I said, that's not how chronic pain works. Some days I can walk, some days I can't. That doesn't mean I'm not in pain every single day. Amy told Casey to drop it. Casey left the room with a smirk. I stayed behind and told Amy I wanted to report the video. Amy said she would escalate it to HR. I felt relieved at first, but nothing happened. HR said they would investigate, but Casey kept working there. She started looking at me differently. She'd linger in the break room when I was there. She'd take photos of my car in the handicap spot. She'd send me emails with subject lines like FYI and attach pictures of me walking across the parking lot. I went to the police. I told them I was being stalked. They said it was a workplace issue, not a criminal one. I said, she's following me outside of work. She took video of me at a coffee shop on my day off. The officer shrugged and said, it's not illegal to take video in public. If she threatens you, call us. I felt helpless. I'm black and I'm in Texas. I knew the police weren't going to take me seriously. I decided to get a lawyer. I called a disability rights organization and they connected me with an attorney who specialized in workplace harassment. She told me to document everything, save the emails, keep a log of every time Casey followed me, record the dates and times. One evening, I was leaving work late. I walked to my car and saw Casey sitting in her car in the lot. She had her phone up again, filming me. I didn't say anything. I got in my car and drove home. I was crying. I couldn't believe this was my life. The next week, Casey called me at my desk. She said, "I just want you to know I'm not going to stop. I know you're faking." "I'm going to prove it." I hung up. I reported that to Amy and HR again. HR finally scheduled a formal hearing. At the hearing, Casey brought in more videos. She had footage of me walking into a grocery store without my cane. She had footage of me laughing with friends at a park. She said, "Look, she's active. She's not disabled. She's lying." My lawyer was there. She presented my medical records, my doctor's notes, my accommodation request forms. She said, "Chronic pain is invisible." The fact that Ms. OOP can walk sometimes does not mean she is not in severe pain. Ms. Casey has engaged in a pattern of stalking and harassment that violates company policy and the Americans with Disabilities Act. The HR panel deliberated for 2 weeks. During that time, Casey kept coming to work. She wouldn't look at me. I was on edge every single shift. I started using my cane more often, even on medium pain days, just so no one could accuse me of faking. But I knew that was wrong. I shouldn't have to perform my pain for them. Finally, Amy called me into her office. She said, "Casey has been terminated. We found that she violated multiple policies, including harassment and retaliation. She's no longer employed here." I felt relief, but also fear. Casey knew where I lived. She knew my schedule. I asked Amy if we could get a restraining order. She said that was up to me and the police. I went back to the police station. I showed them the termination letter, the videos, the emails. This time, they took me more seriously. They filed a report. They said they would issue a no-contact order. I haven't seen Casey since, but I get weird emails sometimes from random accounts. They say things like, "You'll never be safe, I know what you are." I forward them to my lawyer. She says to keep documenting. Some days I wonder if I should have just kept my head down, if I should have just let her win. But then I remember I'm not the one who did anything wrong, I just exist. And for some people, that's enough to make them angry. I still work at the nonprofit. Amy is still my boss. The team has been supportive, but I don't feel safe the way I used to. Every time I walk into a coffee shop, I check over my shoulder. I wonder if someone else is watching me. I wonder if they're waiting for me to have a good day so they can use it against me. Chronic pain doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't care about your job or your reputation. It just lives in your bones. And I've learned that the world doesn't believe you until you suffer in the way they expect. I'm not going to apologize for having good days. I'm not going to stop using my cane when I need it. And I'm sure as hell not going to let anyone make me feel like I have to prove my own existence. I was 17 when I learned that some people will do anything to protect a lie. I worked at a coffee shop in my town. It was a busy little place, the kind where regulars knew your name and you memorized their orders before they even reached the counter. I liked it. It gave me money for gas and dates, and it kept me out of the house. My girlfriend at the time, let's call her Emily, was 16. We'd been together for about 6 months. She was sweet, kind of shy, and she lived with her older sister, Sam. Sam was 24, engaged to a guy named Derek, and she was getting married in July. That was only 2 months away. Everyone was excited. Emily talked about the wedding nonstop. She was going to be a bridesmaid. She'd picked out a dress. The whole thing felt like a big family party waiting to happen. I'd met Sam a few times. She was nice to me, but in that older sister way where you're never sure if she actually likes you or just tolerates you because you're dating her little sister. She worked at a bank, I think. I never really paid much attention. She was engaged. She seemed happy. That was all I knew. Then one afternoon, about 2 weeks ago now, everything flipped. It was a Tuesday around 4 o'clock. The afternoon rush had just started. I was behind the counter pulling shots of espresso when my coworker Maria nudged me. "Check out that couple in the corner," she said, nodding toward the windows. "They need to get a room. This is a coffee shop." I looked over. There was a woman and a guy in a booth near the back. They were all over each other, full-on making out, like hands in hair, faces pressed together, the whole thing. I squinted. The woman turned her head slightly and I recognized her instantly. It was Sam, my girlfriend's sister. I froze. The guy was not Derek. I'd never seen him before. He looked older, maybe 30. He had a beard and a leather jacket. Derek was clean-shaven and wore polo shirts. This was definitely not Derek. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there holding the espresso machine. Maria said, "You okay? You look like you saw a ghost." I said, "I'm fine. I need to take the trash out." I went to the back and stood in the storage room for 5 minutes. My hands were shaking. I thought about calling Emily. I thought about pretending I hadn't seen anything. I told myself it might have been a misunderstanding. Maybe Sam had a brother I didn't know about. But no, she was full on making out with this guy. You don't do that with a brother. I went back to work. I stayed behind the counter and tried not to look at the corner. Eventually, Sam and the guy left. I let out a breath. Maria said, "Finally, they're gone. I thought they were gonna start undressing." I laughed nervously. I went to clean their table. I grabbed a rag and a spray bottle. I wiped down the table, trying to get the image out of my head. Then I heard the door jingle. I looked up. Sam was walking back in. She'd forgotten something, maybe her phone or her purse. She scanned the room and her eyes landed on me. Her face went white. She walked straight up to me. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight. "You saw me, didn't you?" she whispered. I said, "I didn't see anything." She shook her head. "Don't lie to me. I saw you looking. You work here. I didn't know you worked here." I said, "I just clean tables. I don't pay attention to customers." She stared at me. Her eyes were wide and scared. She said, "You have to keep your mouth shut. You don't tell Emily, you don't tell Derek, you don't tell anyone. This never happened." I didn't say anything. She let go of my arm and walked out. I felt sick. I finished my shift. When I got home, my phone was blowing up with texts from Emily. She was asking, "What's going on with you and my sister? She's really upset. She said you saw something. What did you see?" I didn't know how to respond. I said, "I didn't see anything. She's mistaken." Emily kept pushing. She said, "She's crying. She won't tell me what happened. She said you need to come over. Can you come over?" I said, "I'm not allowed out right now. My parents won't let me leave." Emily said, "She'll drive to your house. You can sneak out." I said, "I can't. My parents are home." I felt like a coward, but I also felt trapped. I was 17. I didn't want to be the guy who ruined a wedding. I didn't want to be the guy who broke up a family, but I also didn't want to lie. The next day I went to work. I thought maybe Sam would stay away, but she came in again, alone this time. She sat at the counter and ordered a latte. She stared at me the whole time I made it. When I handed it to her, she said, low enough that no one else could hear, "I need to talk to you after your shift. Meet me in the parking lot." I said, "I have homework." She said, "I'll make it worth your while. Please, I'm begging you." I agreed. I don't know why. I think I was scared of what she might do if I said no. After my shift, I walked to the parking lot. She was sitting in her car, a blue Honda. She waved me over. I got in the passenger seat. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red. She wasn't wearing makeup. She said, "Look, I know you saw me with that guy. I'm not going to lie to you. We've been seeing each other for 3 months. I'm not happy with Derek. He's controlling, he's boring, I feel trapped. But the wedding is in July, the deposits are paid, my whole family is coming, I can't call it off now." I said, "So you're going to marry him while you're cheating?" She said, "I know it's wrong, but if you tell anyone, you'll ruin everything. Emily will be devastated. My parents will be humiliated. Derek will probably lose his mind. Do you want that on your conscience?" I didn't say anything. She kept talking. She said, "I'll do anything. I'll pay you. I'll get you a new phone, whatever. Just keep your mouth shut." I said, "I don't want your money. I just want to not be involved." She said, "You're already involved. You saw what you saw. That makes you involved." I got out of the car. I walked home. I felt dirty. I didn't tell Emily. I didn't tell anyone, but Emily kept asking. She said her sister was acting weird. She said Sam had been crying in her room all night. I felt like I was being torn apart. A week later, I got a call from Derek. I didn't even know he had my number. He said, "Hey, this is Derek, Sam's fiance. I heard you work at the coffee shop. Can I come by and talk to you?" My heart stopped. I said, "Sure, when?" He said, "Tomorrow at 3. I couldn't sleep that night. I knew what was coming. Sam must have told him something, or maybe he found out on his own. I didn't know what to say. He showed up at 3 on the dot. He looked different, stressed. He ordered a black coffee and sat in the corner. I brought it to him. He said, "Sit down for a minute." I sat down. He said, "I know you saw my fiancé with another man. I've suspected for a while. I hired a private investigator. He confirmed it." I didn't say anything. He said, "I'm not mad at you. I just want to know what you saw. I need to hear it from someone who isn't a stranger." I told him everything. The booth, the making out, the way she came back and begged me to stay quiet. I told him about the car conversation. He listened. He didn't get angry. He just nodded. He said, "Thank you. I'm calling off the wedding. I'm telling her parents tonight." I said, "I'm sorry." He said, "Don't be, better now than after the wedding." He left. I sat at the table for a long time. I felt like I'd done the right thing, but I also felt like I'd just lit a bomb. That evening, Emily called me screaming. She said, "You told Derek, you told him about Sam. How could you do that? She's my sister. You ruined everything." I tried to explain. I said, "He already knew. He hired a pie. He just wanted confirmation." She said, "I don't care. You should have come to me first. You should have told me what you saw. Instead, you let him find out from a stranger." I said, "I was trying to protect you." She said, "You didn't protect me. You destroyed my family. My parents are fighting. Sam is packing her stuff. The wedding is canceled. You did this." She hung up. She blocked my number. I never heard from her again. I heard through mutual friends that Sam moved out, broke off the engagement, and started dating the guy from the coffee shop. Derek moved on. Emily stopped talking to me completely. I went back to work at the coffee shop. Every time the door jingled, I looked up, half expecting to see Sam or Derek or someone else from that whole mess. I learned that sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It just burns everything down and leaves you standing in the ashes, holding a cup of coffee that's gone cold. I thought my coworker was just a little too competitive. Turned out she was following me with her phone, trying to prove I was faking my disability. Let me back up. I have chronic pain, not the kind that shows up on an x-ray or makes you limp visibly every single day. It's more like a constant hum of discomfort that spikes on bad days. I explain it like this: most people walk around at a pain level of 1 or 2, I'm at a baseline of 6. That's like having a pulled muscle that never fully heals. Some days I'm at a 7 or 8, and on those days I use a cane. I also have a handicap placard for my car. I'm legally disabled. I filed all the paperwork with my job when I started, both for my full-time role and my part-time one. This part-time job is at a nonprofit. I do it because I like the work and it keeps my mind off the pain. I was recently moved to a new location closer to home. The team was great. My boss, Amy, was understanding. She knew about my condition from day one. The only person who seemed bothered was Casey. Casey was an assistant coordinator, same title as me. She wanted a promotion badly. Everyone knew it. She'd been there longer and thought she deserved the full-time coordinator spot that opened up when the location expanded. But then I showed up. And I made it clear I didn't want a promotion. I already had a full-time job. I just wanted to do my shifts and go home. That didn't stop Casey from treating me like a threat. At first, it was small stuff. She'd roll her eyes when I used my cane on bad days. She'd make comments like, "Must be nice to get a chair for the desk work," even though I never asked for special treatment. I just used the chair that was already there. She'd watch me when I walked like she was waiting for me to trip or stumble so she could say I was exaggerating. I ignored it. I figured she was just stressed about the promotion. Amy was fair and didn't play favorites. Casey would get her chance eventually. Then came the Sunday that changed everything. I woke up at 7. My back was on fire. I grabbed my cane and my placard and drove to work. The parking lot was full, so I had to park farther away than usual. That's where Casey saw me. I didn't notice her at first. I was focused on getting inside without collapsing. I walked slowly, leaning on the cane, taking short steps. I got to the door, swiped my badge, and made it to my desk. The whole shift was fine. I did my work, kept to myself, left on time. The next morning, I got a text from Amy. She asked me to come to her office before my shift. I thought it was about scheduling. I walked in and saw Casey sitting there with her phone in her hand. She had this smug look on her face. Amy said, "Casey showed me something I need to discuss with you." Casey turned her phone toward me. It was a video. A video of me walking across the parking lot from the day before. I was using my cane, moving carefully. But the video was zoomed in, grainy, and if you didn't know what you were looking at, it just looked like a person walking normally. Casey said, "See, she doesn't even need that cane. She walks fine. She's faking it to get special treatment." I stared at her. I said, "You recorded me without my permission outside of work." She shrugged. "It's public parking lot, not illegal." Amy looked uncomfortable. She said, "I told Casey I don't approve of this, but she insisted I see it." "I want to hear your side." I took a breath. I explained that I have chronic pain, that my disability is real, that I only use the cane on high-pain days. I showed them my paperwork that was already on file. Amy nodded. She said, "I know about your condition. This video doesn't change anything." Casey's face fell. She said, "But she's clearly not disabled. I've seen her walk without the cane. I've seen her carry boxes." I said, "I only carry boxes on good days. You don't see me on bad days because you don't live with me. I don't owe you a medical chart." Amy ended the meeting. She told Casey that recording coworkers was against policy and that she would be written up. Casey stormed out. I thought that was the end of it. It was. Over the next few weeks, Casey escalated. She started following me after work. She'd park near my car and wait. I caught her taking photos of me getting out of my car, walking into the grocery store, even sitting on a bench. I confronted her once. I said, "Are you following me?" She said, "I'm just trying to document the truth. You claim you're disabled, but you walk fine when you think no one is watching." I reported her to Amy again. Amy talked to HR. They told Casey to stop. She didn't. One night I was at a diner with a friend. I had my cane resting against the booth. I was having a good night, laughing, not hunched over in pain. Casey showed up. She sat at the counter and filmed me with her phone, just openly recording. My friend noticed and asked, "Who is that?" I said, "My stalker." My friend walked over and told Casey to leave. Casey refused. The manager came and asked her to leave. She left, but she kept the video. The next day, she emailed it to Amy, to HR, and to every employee in the department. The subject line was, "Proof she's not disabled." I was humiliated. I called a meeting with Amy and HR. I said, "This is harassment. She's stalking me. I have documented disabilities. She is creating a hostile work environment." HR said they would investigate. Casey was put on leave, but that didn't fix anything. I started getting calls from strangers, other employees I barely knew, asking if I'd really faked my condition. I had to explain myself over and over. I tried to file a police report for stalking. The officer looked at the videos and said, "This isn't stalking, it's just someone filming in public. You don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy in a parking lot or a diner." I said, "She's doing it to harass me because of my disability." He shrugged. "That's a civil matter, not criminal." I was black, disabled in Texas. I knew what that meant. I wasn't going to get help from the cops. I talked to a lawyer. She said I had a strong case for disability harassment and invasion of privacy. She sent a cease and desist letter to Casey and to the company. The company finally took it seriously. They terminated Casey after an internal investigation found she had violated multiple policies. But the damage was done. I felt exposed. I changed my routine. I stopped using my cane even on bad days because I was terrified of being filmed. I started working from home for my full-time job more often. I even considered quitting the part-time role. Amy apologized. She said, "I should have shut this down earlier. I'm sorry you went through this." I appreciated that, but it didn't erase the feeling of being watched. Casey had taken something from me that I couldn't get back, my sense of safety. I still have the chronic pain. It didn't go away. I still use my cane on bad days, but now I scan the parking lot before I get out of the car. I look over my shoulder. I check if anyone has their phone pointed at me. I never thought a coworker would try to prove I wasn't disabled. I thought people would believe the paperwork, the doctor's notes, the placard. But Casey showed me that some people will always think they know your body better than you do. And sometimes the system won't protect you until you've already been burned.